Ladies and gentlemen, would you please take your seats? Our program is about to begin.
Our AV team in the back's doing a great job. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to our 2023 OPCOM, Spring OPCOM. This is an important meeting where our directors get to talk about what the activities and work that they're doing in our directorates, which is so important. That's what drives the missions at the flotilla and division level. So I want to thank everybody for being here today.
Getting old is not for the weak. Welcome to OPCOM. This is one of my favorite events. I truly enjoy this. I know how much hard work each of our teams have put in, and I know their amazing accomplishments are just 5 months into this term and how much has occurred toward alignment with my strategic plan. But this gives everyone the opportunity to know just how much you've done, and it gives you an opportunity to shine. So I want to thank each and every one of you.
With that, I'd like to speak for a minute about some ground rules. We have a very, very, very full agenda this morning. And so please stick to your 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you've been assigned for your reports. Remember, speak into the microphones because we have people watching us on YouTube this morning, and if you're speaking in the crowd, they won't hear you. When you introduce yourself in the podium over here, I'd like you to please introduce say your name, your directorate. If you use initials for your directorate, please announce what that directorate is, so that everybody understands that. Terry, did you have anything? Kelly? Are we good to go? All right. So we'll go ahead and start. Our first is Sue, our ANACO for Information Technology.
Thank you. Good morning, Admiral Timmy, Captain, Commodores, directors, staff. I am Sue Davies, Assistant National Commodore for Information Technology. I have 2 directorates, Computer Software Systems and Cybersecurity, or C Directorate, and User Support and Services, or U Directorate. And I'll introduce those directors later on at the end of my remarks. So I don't know how many of you took freshman calculus But starting off OPCOM at 8 a.m. with IT is a little bit like the freshman class, calculus class I took in college. It kind of reminded me of a few things. The time we get to lunch today, the function of how quickly or slowly we get through about 26 speakers today, right? And each speaker will have a differential in their delivery pace, definitely accelerating as they get closer to their 5 or 10 minute limit, right? Commodore Merriman is going to kill me after this. So we'll eventually get to lunch, but with those 5 and 10 minute segments and breaks, it's not going to be a continuous function. So there's a reason I got a D in that calculus class, but I digress. So within the IT group, we have 13 strategic plan milestones. Almost all of those milestones are related to cybersecurity, whether it's internal auxiliary system cybersecurity, or as you've been hearing about quite a lot this week, the new Cyber augmentation program. I am going to cover just a few of them, but just in totality, 2 of them are complete, 7 are in progress, 3 are awaiting start, and 1 is on hold. One of our milestones is to develop an organizational plan within the C Directorate, Computer Software Systems Cybersecurity Directorate, to support implementation of initiatives both related to a cybersecurity vulnerability assessment that we did of our own systems, and then this new Cyber program. So we've completed that organizational plan in principle, and in practicality, it has been implemented starting with phase 1, which was creation of a new Deputy Director for Cybersecurity. That position is held by Joe Espino, who's going to be with us here today virtually. The next step after that was to create 2 divisions to support the new Cyber program. Those were put in place in December, and this organizational plan is going to continue to be carried out through the next few months. I did have a remark in here about the success of the ongoing and growing Cyber program, but I think you've all heard enough to kind of get the point that that program is progressing very well. So I'm going to skip that part of my remarks. Kind of segueing a bit off cybersecurity, we have the WOW system, right? Websites Without Webmasters, or WOW, and we're upgrading all of our systems to this new Cognito authentication system. Well, WOW is an old legacy system, homegrown. That one has proven to be technically challenging as far as putting this new Cognito authentication into that system. So right now, completion of the strat plan milestone to implement Cognito across all the systems, that one, I'm calling that one on hold while we figure out how we're going to get the authentication set up in WOW. So this issue ties into what sometimes happens for folks who are not familiar with the strat plan, is that sometimes milestones continue over into a next term or a new strat plan, and they're still being conducted behind the scenes. And so this particular issue with WOW ties into a preceding strat plan task we had, which is to start looking at the future of website support for the auxiliary. Start looking at candidates to move on from WOW. WOW is well over, 10, 15, 12 years old, and we need to move on from that. It's getting technically too challenging to keep maintaining that. Do not worry. WOW is not going away tomorrow. It's not going away next year. You know, it's a long ways off before we switch from WOW. One carryover milestone from last term was to replace the Kayako help desk, not the Oxdata 2 system help desk, but the traditional national help desk that we've got. We have finally put the contract in place for that, and we have just started building out the new Kayako system. The goal is to activate that, and I think Commodore Merriman mentioned this. The goal is to activate that in the next few months, well before NACON. So it'll have a more fresh, current look and feel to it, and from our perspective, it'll be a lot more secure than the system that we have now. So that concludes my remarks. I'll be followed by Computer Software Systems and Cybersecurity Director Amanda Constant, her Deputy for Software and Systems, Carlos Arenas. Joe Espino is the Deputy Director for Cybersecurity. Hopefully he's watching us virtually. And then after that, we'll have Jen Austin join us up here. She is the Director for User Support and Services, and with her Deputy Director, Bill Ballard. Thank you.
Good morning, Admirals, Captain, Commodores, and shipmates. It is my pleasure to present the highlights and challenges for the Computer Systems, Software, and Cybersecurity Directorate, otherwise known as C. First, I'll go to our highlights, and I apologize for the redundancy of some of what you're going to be hearing. As you heard in previous briefings, in December 22, the formal instruction for the Auxiliary Cyber Augmentation, or AUXCyber, was signed by the Coast Guard Cyber Command. This follows the inclusion of the Auxiliary as a component of the overall Coast Guard cyber workforce as described in the latest revision, November 2022, of the Cyberspace Operations Manual. As you heard earlier this week from Commodore Merriman's remarks, the Auxiliary core training classes that are offered in the Moodle Online Classroom are now included in our weekly completion extraction, allowing them to be included for the first time in our weekly automatic uploads to AUX Data 2. And this negates the need for the self-attestation and associated manual data entry. And finally, the historical auxiliary data from our pre-AUX Data 2 legacy systems has been recovered and made available to my colleagues in the U Directorate to correct the remaining data import issues from the original data migration into AUX Data 2. You'll hear more about that later. As for our challenges, auxiliarists inadvertently conduct activities that compromise or potentially compromise personally identifiable information, or PII, of our auxiliarists, of our shipmates. And new training and procedures are being developed for members that go beyond the current AUX-CT privacy training. And I'm looking forward to working with my shipmates and district leadership, I talked to all of you yesterday, to raise the awareness around PII and the importance of its protection down to the deck plate. The migration of websites without webmasters, the WOW system, as Commodore Davies mentioned, to an individual virtual server, which is one of the steps we need to take to be able to complete the tie-in with our authentication server, still remains incomplete, which is delaying that inclusion into our single sign-on system. We are in the process of implementing a solution for the most recent issues. And finally, ongoing upgrades and maintenance due to the use of outdated technologies in our legacy software reduces the bandwidth that we have to develop and innovate. And it impacts our cross-directorate project timelines as well. So as we modernize each of these products, we gain bandwidth to do that innovation on behalf of the auxiliary, and we look forward to a future where we can dedicate the majority of our talent to bring new services to our memberships. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jen Austin, the Director of the U Directorate, which is Information Technology, User Support and Services. I apologize up front if I screw anything up. This is my first 3 up, 3 down. So, okay, our ups. The Kayako Help Desk update team is working through the design and training phase with assistance from the vendor, who provided a courtesy 4-month extension to the contract to acknowledge the delayed project starts. It's always nice to get a little something extra for free. AUX 10, that's one of the projects that my fellow's working on. We have a Train the Trainer. For those of you who were in the round robin yesterday, we were talking about this. That's intended to get boots on the ground AUX 10 instructors in the districts so that we don't always have to work through the pressure of the C-School process to get AUX 10 training locally. So where we're at on that is that the Train the Trainer project initial call out is complete with new instructor training to begin April 2023. My deputy director, wherever he went, Bill Ballard is our first graduate of that program. So exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And then Amanda mentioned this one, and this one is huge. We hope to have the final report on this for sure by NACON. Access to legacy Ox data, and I have to give a huge shout out to Chris Booth on this one for not letting it go to get us this information. This has helped us identify appropriate mission codes for approximately 1.8 million legacy activity logs that migrated without crosswalk mission code assignments. So for those of you that sometimes see the old stuff with a blank mission code, we can now identify those. So we can't not just put a blank 99 echo on it. We can actually identify, yes, this was PA activity, this was public education, and give those historical metrics back. The project has also identified the cause of activity duration errors that imported at 1/24th their actual time during migration, primarily impacting historical patrol activities. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. 1/24th of the time was credited. Correcting and updating the affected activities will return millions of historical activity hours to our members, and I think that's huge. Now, for the downs. The Kayako Help Desk project, that one initially stalled at the November 1st start date, but has since been positively course-corrected with the vendor, as noted above. And then our other down, and this is just kind of an ongoing project, is the unit table list of WOW unit websites recognized and hosted by the auxiliary server is outdated, either with old unit names or with non-operational units. This created problems during the back-end updates by the C Directorate and caused confusion regarding the unit name being displayed on the website versus what's in Aux Data. The Aux Data Support Division is working with the C Directorate to clean this up, so that will be fixed, and we're going to be working with each of the districts just to help them identify, hey, this unit might still exist in Aux Data, but just be full of retired members, to help them work with their diaroxes to figure out what they want to do and just get all of that cleaned up. So thank you. That's all I have. And like I said, stay tuned for that activity update. That's going to be awesome.
Go, Mike. Next, we'll hear from our performance measurement team.
All right. My name is Peter Jensen. I head up the PS group, and that stands for Planning and Student Programs. And I'll stick to our strategic plan objectives. I'll let my directors do the heavy lifting here. The Student Programs Directorate has completed 4 of their 12 strategic plan milestones, or 33%. Bravo, Zulu. And the four completed milestones are to update Aux Data 2 to reflect Sea Scout and AUP membership, to track AUP selection rates to officer accession programs, track Sea Scout selection to the Coast Guard Academy, and track Sea Scout selection to the Academy Introduction Mission. All 3 of these are very high-profile programs. The Performance Measurement Directorate has overall responsibility with tracking the National Staff Strategic Plan compliance. And at this time, the National Staff, writ large, has completed 17.3% of all assigned milestones in the 22 to 28 strategic plan. Bravo, Zulu, keep up the momentum. I will now introduce my Performance Measurement Director, Mr. Kevin Revan. He'll bring you up to date on the metrics side of the house. Kevin?
Good morning. Also with me is Deputy Director of Performance Measurement, Harry Parsons. Our 3 ups had a problem last year. Our survey vendor that we use for doing our quarterly new member surveys and exit member surveys had been adding on, without our permission, additional questions that were not appropriate. We had to leave that company behind. We have identified a new company. We've got the new contracts in place, and our surveys have resumed. So, very positive move. Second up, we've been working, assisting the NAC, the National Association of Commodores, with Commodore Bob Lauer in preparation for their outreach to past elected and appointed Commodores. Our third up was rather interesting. Our unit summary data report that we produce on a monthly basis, we have added 2 new metrics. So On the membership tab, besides showing for every district, division, and flotilla the number of AX, IQ, BQ members, we have added the number of new members this year to date, and the number of died, disenrolled, and retired members. The interesting number out of that is, as of the end of this quarter, we have 218 died, disenrolled, and retired, as opposed to 479 new enrollments. This is the highest first quarter since 2016. So those new metrics are in the USD, and you'll be seeing that each month. On the downs, preparation of our annual valuation report is very labor intensive and mathematically complex, and has to be done very rigorously to not only take care of federal accounting standards, but GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles in the accounting industry. Our problem is we only have one member right now who's qualified to do that, but we're in the process of documenting the entire procedure and training up new people for that. Second down is we've got a number of staff vacancies. We're a small directorate with a high workload, so we are working to fill those vacancies and get even more work done. And that's it for performance measurement.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to talk. I'm Gene McNamara of the Student Programs Directorate. My deputy, who may have to take over, is Jacob Thayer. He's used to talking. He's a lawyer. To start with our highlights. The Auxiliary University Program. You've been hearing a lot about us all week, so I don't want to bore you to death, but since NACON, we have had 4 new brick and mortar units established, and our very first one at an alternate service academy, the United States Merchant Marine Academy, came on board. AUP students continue to retain a very high selection rate for officers' accession points.
Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'll try not to talk too long as a lawyer. So for youth programs, one of our ups was there was a 15% gain in auxiliary chartered Sea Scouts in 2022. 5th Southern, as I think you might have heard earlier this week, chartered Flotilla 2025 in Washington, D.C. And that's the first national Sea Scout organized unit, which includes 20 new auxiliary members. And the average age is pretty low compared to our national average auxiliary age. So we see these people being around for a little bit longer. Our Academy Partners program, which we recently had slide over into the S Directorate, it undertook an extensive update over the last year or so, and we've updated our roster to get a more accurate perception of how many people are actually involved, actually interested in staying involved in the program. And the Academy just hired their new civilian volunteer coordinator. So we're starting to see some real upward trajectory there, but now we've got accurate numbers with which to work. For areas that we'd like to improve our downs, we're starting to get so many kids that are really interested in the Coast Guard and AUP, and so many well-qualified kids that we're now having a tough time ensuring that they all get OCS and DCO billets. As some of you may know, OCS has about 85% prior enlisted in their classes typically, so that means there's a very narrow window of people coming in off the streets, which is how our people typically come if they're not qualified for a DCO program or can't get into one of the smaller DCO programs. So we're working with Coast Guard Recruiting Command to see what the opportunity there is to make sure that our students that are really well qualified, that are doing good work, can actually come serve active duty and we don't lose them to another service or another agency or the private sector. Youth programs, 5 auxiliary districts account for most of the 28 auxiliary chartered Sea Scout ships. 7 districts only have 1 ship each, and 4 districts have none. Fewer than half of the auxiliary's 156 divisions have appointed staff officers for Sea Scouts, and this just means there's a lot more opportunity out there that we'd like to go after. So we're working to go after that opportunity and partner with you as much as you'd like to have us. And then finally, the area we'd like to improve for our Academy partners. Collectively, we're working to work with our partners to claim their hours. Again, metrics is important to us, so we want to make sure that we're getting an accurate count of the hours. The Academy partners have the tough time of recording hours in the Academy's hours system and the auxiliaries hours system, so you can see how difficult that might be, and just making sure that we're getting an accurate accounting of those hours. So thank you so much. Look forward to working with y'all, and please feel free to reach out to Gene or I if you've got any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Good report so far. Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Rick Saunders from the Response Prevention Group.
Good morning. Rick Saunders. I am the NACO for Response and Prevention. Response and Prevention Group has 3 initiatives on the 2022-2024 strategic plan with 24 milestones. Currently, 3 milestones are completed, 10 are in progress, and 11 are awaiting start, partially because they're dependent upon some of the results from the strategic plan. I want to take a moment to introduce the team that in reality gets all this work done. My Deputy NACO for Response and Prevention, Anthony Marzano. On the International Affairs, the Director, Sven Dobler. On the Prevention team, led by Director Kim Cole and her Deputy, Michael Mitchell. On the Incident Management and Emergency Management team, led by Bill Hanlon, with his Deputy, Dan Jackwish. The Response Group is led by Roy Savoca, with his Deputy being Larry Fletcher. This is the team that gets everything we do in the Response Prevention Group done. So the first initiative was to enhance the auxiliary's relevance to the Coast Guard by continuing to identify and refine what the active duty needs from the auxiliary units. The first phase of this 2023 gap analysis is being compiled with information from over 94% of the sectors and many of the air stations. This Wednesday, Director Hanlon presented the initial findings of this. Not going to go over that information. Greater detail will be presented in the final report. And overall, this report showed still a strong need and desire from the active duty in many mission areas that we support, will be supporting, and can support better. This year, the decision was made to augment the normal that we do, go out and interview the sectors and the air stations. So we're currently in phase 2, which is identifying other headquarters, support, logistics, training missions to find out how else the auxiliary can be supportive of our active duty. This phase 2 element is still being conducted. We all realize that the collection and analysis of this data is just the beginning of the project. Based upon the findings, the Q Directorate team will be providing support both to the directorates who are responsible to help implement the programs, as well as the districts who really are going to be the pivotal to narrow this gap. Second initiative, owned by the Response Directorate, is to enhance the auxiliary's level of safety, proficiency, and professionalism in surface operations to more closely align with the active duty. There are 2 elements to this initiative. The first is in conjunction with the head QEs, the CQEC. That never rolls off the tongue easily. But the chief coordinators and the other qualification examiners to enhance the training and evaluation program to ensure that all surface members are better prepared and capable of the tasks being assigned to them. In conjunction with BSX, the team is already updated the crew coxswain training and qualification documents to more closely align with those of the active duty. They additionally implemented annual updated maintenance currency for crew, coxswains, and PWC operators. Changes to qualification requirements, adding additional tasks, is rarely popular with people. We're resistant to change. But we know most of our crew members already complete these same tasks multiple times during the year. So really, it's recording of what you're already been doing. However, let's be candid with each other. We don't want somebody showing up for their check ride when the last time they did a towing evolution was 3 years ago at their last check ride. Surface operations, we're also seeing a decline in facilities and crew. The response team is going to be developing best practices to increase targeted recruiting, as well as identifying the reasons that we're losing crew members and crew and facilities. The third initiative is to enhance auxiliary support of Coast Guard units to meet the augmentation needs through alignment and integration with Coast Guard Emergency Management Program. The initiative has 9 milestones with 8 in progress. Key to this is the development of guides and training documents to assist members working to achieve Coast Guard Emergency Management Credential or Emergency Management Specialist qualification. In addition, the team will be developing information for members who wish to expand their knowledge through localized opportunities for state-sponsored emergency management training. In conjunction with CGOEM, Coast Guard Office of Emergency Management, the team looks to encourage and support appropriate auxiliary participation in emergency management symposiums and conferences, such as the International Association of Emergency Managers and periodic Coast Guard all contingency planning. Thank you.
Good morning, Team Coast Guard. Before I get to the ups and downs, Commodore Saunders gave me a few of his minutes and asked me to do a quick overview on the International Directorate. We did not have a table yesterday at the round table, but that was not an oversight. I think the reason really is that the Interpreter Corps is one of our early and first augmentation teams. From the beginning, 25 years ago, it was really set up to focus internationally outside the organization and augment the active duty Coast Guard. And that's still basically our main thrust today. The Directorate does not develop programs like other directorates. We do not teach or train as other directorates do. I think that was unique. It's less unique as we develop more augmentation opportunities for our members, whether that's cyber or legal. That would be similar. We're not teaching cyber. We're really harvesting the skills of our membership. And that's really where we are today, too, here with the International Directorate. We have 2 deputies, Drew Wilkins, he focuses on operational, and we have James Sullivan, more on strategy. We have 6 divisions focused on deployment, international outreach, qualifications, development and support, COCOM liaison, and strategic projects division. The deployment division provides interpreters to active duty Coast Guard. We also support outside agencies like DHS, Customs and Border Patrol, and NOAA. We deploy from a pool of over 350 interpreters from 54 different languages. We deploy both in person and remote, meaning from home or on the phone. The International Outreach Division builds relationships with other civilian volunteer organizations all around the world. We've organized in the COCOMs, so we have people and specialists that really focus on each of the different operating areas of the world, and we try to meet and develop relationships with similar organizations focused on recreational boating safety, marine safety, and search and rescue like us. We connect partners with subject matter experts from our other directorates when those partners are seeking help to build their programs. We also learn from our partners, and their experiences help us develop relationships between our nations. We currently have 59 international partners in 39 countries. I'd like to do a little plug here for diversity and for targeted recruiting. If you think about 54 different languages represented in our team, and if you think about where those skills come from, some are acquired here, but many are acquired abroad. And we have people that bring worlds of experience and different thinking to our organization. And I think that's very powerful. I think diversity means really attracting different people with different thoughts. So it's a powerful group. We need more, so get the word out and help us develop those skills. Now getting to our ups and downs, we have 32 new interpreters that were qualified in 17 languages last year. We received close to 50 deployment requests. They come from everywhere. Coast Guard requests come from all directions: stations, cutters, cutter forces, surge staffing, DIROC's offices, investigation units, combatant commands. So there's no centralized funnel, which is okay because I think a lot of the deployments have urgency that really get hurt by gating them too much. So we respond as we can. It could be a captain calling off a ship who just picked up somebody at sea and he needs to talk to them and we're on a sat phone, or we have more time to deploy. But it's a dynamic area, and just to give you some examples, we supported 4 Mexico, CMAR, and AFRICOM conferences and workshops. We deployed to California, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Botswana. We supported 22 cutter missions and air deployments. That was in the Caribbean, the Arctic, Indo-PACOM, AFRICOM, and multiple deployments for OVS in Florida. We supported 2 search and rescue missions, 7 investigations, and 7 document translation missions. We also have several international outreach projects, to mention a few. The Canadian Coast Guard just successfully participated with 5 Canadian auxiliaries. They participated at the 9 West NTRAIN for management training, OXLAMs. I think they're joining again in June in Houston. So thank you to District 9 West and also our training directorate for making that happen. This training may also actually become an online feature, as it is for us, for our outside partners, and I think the C directorate is thinking about how we manage those access privileges. The Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary is looking to broaden our partnership and are starting to look at starting up a youth program and want to see how we do that with the Sea Scouts. We have the first of 3 international Zoom forums where we're trying to connect with our outside partners. I mentioned 59 partner organizations. They cannot all come to NACON. They don't have budgets, but they want to know what we're doing and we want to know what they're doing. So we're trying to connect using our wonderful Zoom platform to really share information and build those experiences. Now to our challenges. The number of requests that are coming in and the duration of those requests are really something we struggle with. We don't fill all of these requests that come in, and when we do, we don't always fill them fully. We have a mismatch of languages requested versus resources available. We really need targeted recruiting in Southeast Asian languages. Cutter forces also have data and security concerns. They're asking for higher clearances and ALAC cards. Currently, they have to make special security arrangements on the bridge and limit our interpreters in their tasks. Lack of clearances and computer access restrictions mean interpreters cannot fill their reports underway. They can't send email or connect to the outside world. When you're on a 6-week deployment, that's tough. And having people join in that, is tough too. So finding interpreters who can take 4 to 6 weeks is difficult. We mitigate that by trying to shorten the deployments. But to do so, that means flying into a foreign port and meeting a ship in a COCOM, and now you're subject to a lot of other restrictions and preparations. Another challenge, in deployment is the new E2 system, not a surprise. I think we struggled through it. I think we're getting better. And we've managed it, but we've managed it by basically taking control for the auxiliarists who might only deploy once a year and set them up, work with the DIROC's offices, get the E2 accounts set up, and then do the travel reservations, submit the authorizations, work on the orders, let everybody know. That's a lot of work, and I think as we augment in other areas, culinary, for one, or clergy, I think they're shared problems, and I think maybe next year we should consider a round table for all of the augmentation folks, and maybe the active duty will come and visit with us instead of our districts. But I think we have a lot of shared struggles when it comes to deployment in these new augmentation areas. Our current policy certainly provides pathways to get the higher security clearances, ALAC cards, CG1 accounts, except I think there's an issue in terms of who initiates that request and how and where you activate that card. When you're joining a cutter, it's very difficult to activate a piece of plastic. They don't have the bandwidth on the cutter. The security officers don't know us, so I think we have to think about where and how we get that done. Also, joint knowledge online classes are available if you have the proper setup. It's difficult, though, from a deployment standpoint, to get all that done at the time of an obtaining unit request. We're the reserve of the reserve, and when we get called, that means active duty and reserve, maybe State Department could not fill the slot. We have sometimes 2, 3 days, 5 days, maybe a month, but to get all that done is very difficult. We therefore recommend redefining baseline deployment readiness criteria, especially for the core group willing to deploy and able to deploy to cutters. Qualifying interpreters in advance of any obtaining unit request. Finding an active duty sponsor, not the ship, not the station, and maybe that should be headquarters or DCOI or a sector. We need to update our deployment policy documents to also include pre-deployment briefings. Physical fitness attestations, it's something we manage, but not well enough, I think. Post-deployment feedback from the active duty. How did these guys do, or ladies? We also need to address the emotional and clergy support that's necessary when people are on missions and come back.
Sven, I'm going to have to call time in a minute.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
Okay, so the other challenge is DIROC's offices simply don't have some of the resources and have a hard time adding ID cards, interpreter qualification, entries into OX data, and setting up E2 accounts. So I think there's a great opportunity. Some of these reasons are temporary, and I think we understand them, and we're working through it. But I think there's a big opportunity to really look at what kind of admin functions the DIROC's offices are doing for us and how much we can push that back to the directorates or our own staff. We can take care of our own PQS. Let us do the OX data entries, for instance. So I think that's it then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you so much. We gave Sven a few extra minutes off of Rick's time because he did not have a round table, a table at the round table yesterday. So Sven, thank you. So Rick donated some of his time to Sven to be able to finish up his report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I should be able to truncate some of my remarks because so many discussions were made regarding the gap analysis. So I should be able to make up some time here. The Emergency Management and Disaster Response Directorate, commonly known as the Q Directorate. My name is Bill Hanlon, and my deputy is Dan Jackwish. The Q Directorate has 2 national objectives, and 3 of those 18 milestones that have been given to us have been completed. Our first up has to do with the operations at the southwest border. An initial request for assistance was requested from Customs and Border Protection for auxiliary support and was received in the spring of 2022. A second request was received for another mission commencing in 2023. In this second instance, the request was for a 90-day deployment, and it did not include any active duty or reserve components. Within 24 hours of the notification, a subgroup of the Incident Management Auxiliary Coordination Cell, or IMAC, was formed for that project. The Deployment Assistance Group established a staff and then went about soliciting volunteers. Within a week, more than 100 offers were received from members seeking to deploy to Texas to the southwest border. Eddie Puckett from 8 Eastern created and populated a spreadsheet which was instrumental in starting that multi-step vetting process. A senior team leader and 6 strike team leaders from the 2022 deployment were identified, and they were integrated into that selection process. A strike team leader was designated as a supervisor for each of the 7 13-member strike teams. Each team was scheduled to deploy for 16 days, including 2 travel days. The Deployment Assistance Group coordinated various logistical details between multiple federal agencies and non-governmental entities. A comprehensive 85-page incident action plan was developed for that deployment as a guide for the 2023 Southwest Border Mission. The team's first deployment was canceled at the last minute. The second team, supervised by Michael Mitchell from 11 Northern, deployed on February 7th. And that last team member completed that deployment on February 26th. Now, due to a massive COVID outbreak at the El Paso facility, the remaining deployments were suspended. The CBP agent, who was my point of contact, reported to me later on after they left. They said the team was professional in all aspects and would welcome the help of the auxiliary, in his words, in a heartbeat. The second up has to do with the gap analysis, and I will truncate those discussions because we've mentioned that on multiple occasions during this NTRAIN. The third up has to do with our Q website. It's being revamped, and when completed will be the focal point for many ICS-related matters, specifically position-specific emergency management courses and opportunities for the members to become involved. The site will also provide reference e-links and information for best practices of emergency management and a real-time dashboard that's with data that is related to current large-scale events impacting our auxiliary members. Just have one Delta to report, and it's more of an opportunity related to extended deployments. And there is a need to explore and develop, and maybe as a pilot project, a voucher process to have a third party front the cost for lodging and vehicle expenses during those extended, those long-term interagency deployments. So pending any questions, that concludes the Q Directorate's OPCOM report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Good morning, everybody. I am Kim Cole. I am the Director of Prevention. This is my Deputy Director, Michael Mitchell. I would like to start off by mentioning the tremendous work our staff has done in the Prevention Department. Without their hard work, we would never have the achievements we're able to talk about today. Many of you have heard of the updated MSAM, or Marine Safety Administrative Management qualification that we have done. That is now online. The update has been completed. It's been posted online. We have done the first workshop of this, a national workshop. We had over 50 of your members in your districts in attendance for this. This workshop helped teach these members how to reach out to members who have not received this qualification as yet, to explain to them how they can do this and what steps they need to go to in order to achieve this process. With 50 of them starting, I'm hoping to be able to see many more people being able to achieve the letter of designation on this. Rick Young, who is on our staff, he is the one who developed the modules for the Moodle program on MSAM. Also developed a very good PowerPoint explaining it, and we do have that now posted on our prevention website. So your DSOs can be able to take this and use this as a training tool to the members in your districts as well. On our other PQS workbooks that we are working on, we have received back, and I want to thank Master Chief Park for all of his assistance in being able to get these to Coast Guard headquarters. The ones we have are now being reviewed by the different members that handle these particular missions at Coast Guard headquarters. We have received back 2 of them, the waterway management and the facilities. We have done the final corrections and returned them for a final review of them before they could be posted. We hope to be able to see something on those soon. We are still waiting for the UPV examiner workbook, container inspector workbook, and pollution response workbook. The pollution response will be a little bit longer in coming back, just to let you know, because we have had questions on it. Reason being for that is I have been in contact with CGMER, and they are working on their own update at this time. They have our updated workbook, and what they are going to do is, as they complete their updates to it, they're going to make sure that they can incorporate changes that they are doing into our updated workbook. So when it's released, we are all on the same page. We also have been taking the study guides that were developed to accompany these workbooks, making sure that the links into it or any changes that have occurred in the workbooks are changed in the study guides as well. So once these books are released, the study guides will be current with the workbooks, and they will all be released at the same time. For your members who are concerned about this, please be sure to tell them that we are giving a sundown date and once these are released. We're not going to just pull them. They are going to be giving time, if they are already currently working on it, they're going to be given time to be able to finish them up. We don't want anyone to become discouraged thinking that they can't complete it if they're already in the middle of it. We now have, thank goodness, we now have a new webmaster in place on the Prevention Outreach Directorate. Miguel, who was our webmaster for several years, did a fantastic job for us, and we truly want to tell him how much we appreciated his work. We do now have a new one in place, and he has been up and running and is doing a very good job for us. We're hoping to be able to continue with that and update our webpage as upcoming months occur. We realize that the web pages, not only ours, but many of them, are not as easy to navigate through. If you're in marine safety, you might be able to navigate through, but if you're a new member, you might not be able to. It can become a little bit tricky to try to find certain things. So we hope to be able, in coming months, to be able to eliminate that process and make it more customer friendly. Some of the challenges we have, and I have mentioned already, is that we're waiting for the other PQS workbooks to come back to us. I know everybody has been asking me when they're going to be coming out, and we're hoping for that to happen soon. What we would like to do is release as many at one time as we can, so we have all going out at the same time. The sundown dates will be the same time. There'll be less confusion. Once this happens, you'll be notified that they are out. We will also, our director will also make sure to let the DSOs in your districts know that they're coming out as well. So everyone will be aware of what's happening at the same time, so nobody will be taken unaware. There's been a lot of concern because the paper charts are going away in aids to the navigation. Our staff is working very diligently on that. They're putting together best practices that we hope to be able to publish soon to be able to help guide people on how they can do that changeover and be sure that their electronic chart plotters, how they can keep them updated and the best use that they can have of it.
Okay, Kim.
And that is actually my time.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much, Kim. Good job, good job.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roy Savoca from the Response Directorate. Getting right into it, the Telecom Division has been working heavily on a push-to-talk feature. It was utilized very heavily during Hurricane Ian and Nicole. It's also been adopted by the active duty Coast Guard following our lead. The CGAA, Coast Guard Aviation Association, last year, gave an award to an outstanding aviator, and this is going to be an annual award that'll be given at their roost once a year. This year, Commodore Maluski was the presenter and also the featured speaker at the roost. As Rick mentioned earlier, in order to improve safety, proficiency, and professionalism, working with the Chief Director's Office, we updated all of the surface handbooks and PQSs. Two of the things that are new are the fact that there is a physical requirement which will be done by the QE, not by a physician. So when you go to get your QE, he's going to go through, can this person stand, and so on and so forth. There's also a vision and color test. We're also better aligned with the Coast Guard's PQSs. So if the Coast Guard makes a change to theirs, we know exactly where in ours we have to change. In the past, they would make a change over here, and 5 pages later, we had something similar that had a change. So we can update our manuals much quicker. QEs will now receive time, underway time for their missions, for their QE missions. They will receive that as crew members, which we think is a big win for the QEs. Continental Engines, which services quite a few of our aircraft, had a recall. It affected 60 of our facilities. We've been working very diligently We also worked with the Chief Director's Office to ensure that none of these planes were able to fly until they had been properly inspected and documented. We started out with 60 facilities that were grounded. We're now down to 9, and one of those is currently being inspected. We don't really have it down. The only challenge that we have is the fact that with the UAS program, we're going to require every UAS operator to have an ALAC card. And as has been mentioned previously, it's a little difficult getting an ALAC card. So we just wanted to mention that. That ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. All right, next is, we have special remarks from St. Louis Recruiting Command, Chief Petty Officer David Perrin.
I'm a bosun mate by trade. Came into the Coast Guard in 2005, so 17 years in the Coast Guard. First unit was right during Hurricane Katrina, got sent down to Jacksonville, was able to really attack a lot of different missions right away. Went to BMA school, went on to station South Padre Island, where I was able to do all the Coast Guard fun stuff. So chasing drug runners, doing search and rescue, and probably my favorite part, being a 21-year-old, was spring break. But from there, was able to go up to the Great Lakes, Station St. Joseph, was able to earn my heavy weather certification, which is my specialty as a bosun mate. From there, went to Puerto Rico, back chasing the drugs and doing search and rescue, having a great time. From there, was able to go to Peoria, Illinois, where I was told by my detailer multiple times I'd probably ruin my career, but it did not. It was awesome. So we were able to be kind of on the front line of the flood punt mission around the Hurricane Harvey time, which I'm sure a lot of you in this room probably helped. And it was awesome getting to see a lot of Coast Guard Auxiliary working right alongside us as we were pulling people out of Harvey. Got to work Florence, a bunch of other hurricanes, floods. And then I was also able to meet Mr. Christopher Ware while I worked there, which was my first time partnering with him. From there, I earned my officer in charge certifications, was able to earn an XPO job, and I was like, sweet. I told my wife, I'm like, hey, we're gonna go to this station in Delaware, super chill, heavy weather, great. So it wasn't. Pandemic hit, and then President Biden got elected, and it was absolutely crazy. So again, I went to my wife after that tour, and I said, hey, I'm gonna do this new thing called recruiting, and it's super chill. And again, wrong again. So that's had some issues at the dinner table talking about that, but super excited to earn this position. I grew up in Iowa, had no idea what the Coast Guard was, absolutely no exposure. I was a river rat, grew up on boats, whole life. And one of my friends had joined the Air Force, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. And he's like, dude, go Coast Guard. So from then on, after a couple years of college, I decided to enlist, and that's my career, and that's how I got here. All the other services, we have career recruiters. So Coast Guard does not. In St. Louis, I have 3 recruiters, and I have 1,500 schools that I'm responsible for. My closest recruiting units are Kansas City and Chicago, Memphis, and all of this brand new to me, starting in July. I was like, what? So the Coast Guard really, we've been set up to more process. We've never had a recruiting issue historically. So this is all new. So we're learning on the fly. So how do we solve it? That was the question I had right away. Well, I'll give you some answers. The person standing right back there, Mr. Christopher Ware, give him a round of applause. 1,500. Thousands of hours of volunteer time helping us out, helping the Coast Guard Academy out, running all over Illinois, all those schools that we cannot get to. He is helping us out. So that, if you want a solution of how the AUX can help us, that's a big one. As far as AUX goes for recruiting, we have a couple different ways. We have augmentation, which you can come in, you can earn your recruiting badge. There's different levels of that. You can come in and work with the recruiter in charge or a recruiter, or you can just volunteer. I've also had that. I've had different auxiliary from different areas call my office in some of the outlying areas all the way down to Arkansas and say, hey, can I get some material? Can I get some swag? And trust me, we're more than happy to send that type of stuff. It goes a long way in helping what we do. So right now, just so everyone knows, you know, with recruiting, I'm sure a lot of you guys have joined the military at some point or know about it. Not only are we doing the recruiting part now, we've also had to take up caretaking. So we're also taking these kids, we're having to work out with them. A lot of them don't have the PT standards. They have a 38-year-old kind of chubby guy beating them in push-ups and sit-ups. It's a tough recruiting environment. Out of 90 kids that I have actually worked with thus far in just 6 months, I've only been able to get 7 qualified, and 2 of them are still overweight, and I still have to get them there. So it's a huge mission. I appreciate all the support. I could sit up here and talk about it all day, but I see that I'm already over my time, and I apologize. So I'll leave my card. As far as everybody in this room, please reach out to your local RICs. They're looking for help. We have 255 active duty recruiters for the whole Coast Guard. That is it. They're trying to get us more, but right now, everyone is in a people crunch. My unit that I started at, Indian River, that I just talked about in Delaware, we had 35 people on the PAL. They're down to 23. Some of the stations up in Michigan, with some of my friends that are OICs in that community, 20-person PALs down to 10 or 11. So we need help, and you guys are definitely a huge source of help for us. And again, appreciate everything you do, Mr. Ware, and everything you all do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indian River's my station.
Is it really? It's awesome. That's awesome.
Good morning. I'm John Hume, and it is my great honor to present the remarks for Commodore Bob Schaefer, the National Safety Officer, who is not able to be with us here today. Embrace an enhanced safety culture auxiliary-wide remains an objective of the auxiliary's strategic plan. The auxiliary safety program has evolved and will continue to build an the excellent work done so far to move us toward that objective. Now designated the National Safety Board, we have organized into several different committees. As in the past, we'll discuss issues openly with consideration to all, seeking to reach consensus. These committees include the Leadership Committee. These are all Commodores who provide a wealth of auxiliary knowledge and experience, as well as subject matter expertise. The Implementation Partners Committee. These are senior staff members who will guide the directorates as we work to execute, implement, and integrate safety management system components, processes throughout the auxiliary. The Subject Matter Expert Committee. These are, just as it says, subject matter experts, all credentialed individuals who come with significant real-world technical expertise and professional safety management experience in a variety of settings. The Coast Guard Safety Office. These Coast Guard safety professionals form our link to the service-wide safety program to provide guidance, technical expertise, and connect us with the current practice and command intent. Safety begins at the top of the organization. Accordingly, senior leadership connect us with the current practice and command intent. National Safety Board is important, but to develop an enhanced safety culture, the districts must be involved to help foster the culture at each district. District Commodores have been encouraged to appoint members as district safety specialists.
To grow our safety culture, we need to ensure the elements of safety management systems, risk policy, risk management, assurance, and promotion are in place throughout the organization. When we discuss these elements, we recall the voice of our late colleague, Commodore Don Zinner, saying, "Mind them about safety culture, about just culture, excuse me. The bedrock of safety culture is just culture. This is an atmosphere of trust where people willingly and freely provide safety-related information without fear of reprisal or ridicule, penalty, or punishment. Just culture recognizes that we make errors and encourages us to make appropriate responses. In other words, if you mess up, fess up. Everybody learns. It's only by reporting and discussing mishaps and errors that we learn from our mistakes and learn how to prevent future mishaps. That is the role of everyone. We all have a hand in integrating safety principles of safety management in our programs and activities. We're all fundamentally a safety organization. This is for everyone's business. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John is pitch hitting for Commodore Schaefer, who was unable to attend this week. We're a bit ahead of time, so I'm going to call an audible. We're going to go ahead and have Admiral Timmy give his remarks before we take a break. Admiral?
I get to speak first.
Terry's going to introduce.
I get to speak first.
Do that. Use the short version, please.
Important words. It is my true honor to introduce Rear Admiral Richard V. Timmy. Rear Admiral Timmy serves as the commander, 8th Coast Guard District, and is responsible for Coast Guard operations spanning 26 states, including the Gulf of Mexico coastline from the Florida Panhandle to our nation's border with Mexico, the adjacent offshore waters and outer continental shelf, and the inland waterways of the Mississippi, Ohio, Missouri, Illinois, and Tennessee river systems. His previous flag assignment was as the Assistant Commandant for Prevention Policy, and you can read the rest on.
There you go. I
Good answer.
Well, at least you didn't start my clock while you're reading that, so that's what I was reading. Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody, and it's great to join you, and I appreciate the short version. It is available online if you want to see it. It's great to join you here, and we started off with a mention of freshman calculus. So I, too, took summer calculus after my freshman year out of necessity and achieved a solid D. So here I am, 36 years later, calculus and a government major right from that point. So Commodore, good morning. Thank you, Commodore Kirkwood. Terry, thanks for so much for putting all the work into this morning. It's great to join you. I'm also joined here this morning by Command Master Chief Burns, who's actually there he is. He was on a phone call, my gold badge here in the district, and Chaplain Sonny Mitchell, the district chaplain, and we're grateful to join you here this morning and take some opportunity over the last day and a half for the fellowship and support of our organization. Captain, also wanted to say thank you for you being here as well. We are also participating this week in the Western Rivers Spring D-Train. So Captain Moore, Commander Scheibler, and our folks are over there from the local sectors to support. We just did the MAR-Train in March in Houston, and we'll head out to D-Train in Eastern Region in Cincinnati. I'll get a chance to do that not next week, coming up in a couple weeks. So looking forward to that. That's the one I hadn't gotten to yet, so I'm overdue for that. I hope it's apparent to you how much I do support what my auxiliary does here in the 8th Coast Guard District. It's a big footprint. It's 26 states, and just as you heard our recruiter talking about, we just don't have the footprint in each of those places to cover it all. And the auxiliary is a force multiplier for us across this. From the Western Rivers District Commodore, Brock Stevens, Eastern Region, Chris Whitaker, and in the coastal region, Pete Scamardo coming in to continue the work that we've seen happen for the last 2 years for me. We have over 2,800 members of auxiliary in the 8th District, and I've got about 4,000 total active duty and reserve and civilian. So that's a significant chunk on top of that workforce to get this work done, and it's the only way we get it done. And it takes a ton of work. The hours that are all going into this are just impressive, and we're going to get to some of that in a minute. But for me, I know we covered a lot of mission sets this morning, but I always think I like to come back to that boating safety piece of what you all do and getting out there. Because I've said this before standing on this stage, we can look across the many missions that the Coast Guard does. And we look at it through a risk lens. What is a risk to mission, risk to the maritime public? I used this the last year, I think, in a very bad 6 or 7 year span, really tragic. In the inspected fleet, we lost about 90 lives between the El Faro, the Stretch Duck 7, the Conception. These were vessel fires and sinkings that killed U.S. passengers on U.S. boats, about 80, in a really bad stretch. What we see of fatalities in boating safety each year dwarfs that. So our attention to that mission saves lives. Without a doubt, is making an impact of life or death, and particularly through that pandemic period where we saw that surge in new boaters, that surge in people on the water. So thank you so much for that continued work to do that along with our teams. Our OPD, our Operational Planning Direction from land area, and our plan at the 8th District level will continue to stress the use of the auxiliary as a force for our mission execution. And as one of the best practices is noted by land area that we continue to do that. We heard one of our speakers talk about some of the deployable operations we've had out there. So I also want to mention those because I think these are significant. And particularly on really interest to me was the last time I was at Coast Guard headquarters and we had Secretary Mayorkas come and speak to us. He singled out the auxiliary participation on the border. The Secretary of the Department is calling this out. And you've made a name for yourself doing this. Every time this comes up, it's about what can the Coast Guard do here at that national level, because there is a dearth of resources available to go between CBP or the Coast Guard or the rest of the DHS team to get there. And so they're making a significant impact there to the point where he asks about it in his speeches. Am I going to get more? Am I going to get more? But in that, so what I've got for the numbers on the southwest border, coastal region, 1,800 hours, western region, 226 days, eastern region, 59 days of participation in that operation. That's hugely significant. Thank you for that. I also am very personally grateful to Mr. Shabatai, who was my interpreter with SAMAR when Vice Admiral Pablo Gonzalez of SAMAR came up with his team for staff talks with me. Mr. Shabatai was my interpreter, and it changes the flavor of that interaction. His fluency, his competency was integrated into how we did the exchange between two nations. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Operation Vigilant Sentry, that's not going anywhere. That's going to continue to be a draw on our resources for the foreseeable future as we look at the conditions in Cuba and Haiti not getting any better. And so the augmentation, the support from all the talent that goes into either the ICS portions or just the culinary support or the interpreters is huge. And the chaplains. It's not in my remarks, but I'll mention it. You know, we had Chaplain Mode was here. He's out, the chaplain of the Coast Guard, making his rounds through the Heartland. Sonny Mitchell's here. One of the other places where the auxiliary makes such a difference for us is that auxiliary chaplain corps. We have, for 4,000 people, for 40,000 people, we have, I think, chaps, we're up to, 38 chaplains? You know, that's not enough. That's not enough given the role that those folks play for us, because it's not just about ministry, it's about mental health. And the access to mental health is through often the clergy, somebody people are willing to talk to and get into this system. And unfortunately, we're up to 12 suicides this year, including ones in the district in February at Station Lake Charles. This is a continuing issue, so thank you for that support. That is a direct impact to our workforce. All right, I'm looking at my clock here. So let me just kind of take a couple minutes and a very short remarks to you to talk a couple things. One, to our recruiter. Where'd our recruiter go? Thank you. Thank you for that job. And to those of you who are assisting in that, that is an inflection point for the Coast Guard right now in our history. We are short of, and you all I know have experienced the declination of roles over the few years as well. So this is a dual kind of approach for us to talk about recruiting, to get people in the door, because we are short, and it is going to affect operations at some point. It hasn't yet, but it will on this track. And so it is existential that we get out there and get the word out to the young men and women out there who are willing to join our United States Coast Guard. I made my staff sit through this yesterday, Master Chief. So if you're up for some R-rated language, not from me, but from the movie, there's a wonderful scene from a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross, where Alex Baldwin is talking about sales and selling, right? And it can be, in the right lens, if you look at it, inspirational to look at and say, this is how we need to go after people to get them into the organization. He uses a lot, he says, get them to sign on the line that is dotted, right? We need to bring people to fruition in this recruiting journey. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Along with that, when I was appointed to the United States Coast Guard Academy, you know who gave me my appointment in my high school? The local auxiliary. Local auxiliary. The picture in the paper of me like this at 17, it's with the local auxiliary flotilla giving my appointment. It matters. It makes a difference. I still have that cut out in a scrapbook. That's the impact you're going to make in these kids' lives as they move forward. To the folks on active duty, thank you so much for the job you're doing in the auxiliary program, in the boating safety program. It matters greatly. I hope that you see as you come to these assignments the personal connection and impact that you make with our volunteers called the auxiliary. You are their guides, their mentors through this, and you make a difference to whether or not I think folks are successful and long-term because of the support we get from our active duty members who do this. I look at the true friendships that develop, between our active duty and the auxiliary out there, and just about every role. And I think that's a great reward for those positions. Embrace it. It makes a huge impact, and I'm grateful to you all for doing that, so thank you. Lastly, I'm gonna wax a little poetic in my last 4 minutes, and I'm gonna talk about something called the hero's journey. In mythology, it's a very common narrative. The mythological hero, whether it's Jason or Perseus or Hercules or King Arthur or Indiana Jones, there's this journey. And I'll briefly describe it to you because I think there's some things we can listen to in here. The hero hears the call to adventure. It's either thrust upon them or they hear it. It's this call to leave the comfort of the known world they're in. And the hero always says, no, not for me. I can't, it's not for me. I'm not going to do it. And a mentor comes along and gets the hero through that first refusal to journey on the adventure. And somewhere along the line, there's a task that tests the virtue of the adventurer. And beyond that, there's an ordeal, a dragon to fight, a battle to fight, a treasure to find, a chalice to find. And after the ordeal, typically is the loss of the mentor. Now the hero's on their own. And there's a temptation to give up, to leave, to stop the journey. Then we battle through that, and we're on a road back to what they call mastery. You're now the king. King Arthur takes the seat, or also known as happily ever after in many places. So I want to talk about this journey in two different ways. One, either joining the Coast Guard or joining our Coast Guard Auxiliary. This call to adventure. Hey, that sounds pretty neat. I don't know. Probably not for me. So we need to get that new recruit, that new flotilla member through that refusal with some mentorship. Are you the mentor for that person? Can you be the mentor for that person? To get him through that first, I'm not sure the adventure's for me. There's a test of virtue, right? The princess and the pea. Only the princess will feel a pea under 13 mattresses. Only King Arthur can pull the sword from the stone. Are you really virtuous enough, right? Indiana Jones. Only the penitent man shall pass. All these tests. So for me, the virtue test for all of you is in your paycheck. Right? It's a big old zero. I think we've passed the virtue test here. Right? But then there is an ordeal. Oh, there's an ordeal. It's the paperwork. It's the background check. How do I get into this organization? What do you mean it's 17 uniforms I got to buy? Right? There is an ordeal that the mentor is really important to getting that person through. And so now the member has joined the flotilla, and the hero, the new member, loses their mentor, right? The mentor is off now doing something else. In the mythological story, the hero dies, the mentor dies, but we won't kill off the mentor here.
Thank you.
Yeah. But they move on, the mentor moves on to another piece. Now your new member is sitting there, and they're like, what am I doing? And there's a temptation to say, meh, I'm not sure. We're gonna make sure that person gets through that temptation piece and into the mastery piece, taking their seat in the flotilla, doing their job. But then the hero's journey begins again. Because now you're like, all right, now what? I'm a member. What's the call to adventure next? Well, I'm gonna get the Marine Safety Qual, or I'm gonna get the boating safety qual. I'm gonna get the qualification kind of tends to be that next ordeal, or for all of you at the national level, hey, how do I move up in this organization? And we're back into this journey. Who's my mentor? Because I've heard the call, well, maybe I can serve at the next level. Who's my mentor? Who gets me through this first piece? We'll skip the virtue task and say, now there's another ordeal. It's through the qualification process. It's the paperwork. It's the ICS qual. It's not easy. It is an ordeal for the hero to go through. And there's a temptation to abandon the task and abandon the adventure. But if we get through that, when you reach mastery and you take your seat at the table, then you really are the hero of this journey. And I thank you for that, because I think you've all been on this journey to achieve the positions you're in and do the good work in this adventure we call the United States Coast Guard. I love being on it with you. Thank you for being a part of it. And I hope that you can continue that into the future, past all the ordeals and temptations, contribute to this mission, and help us bring that next generation through by being the mentors in that journey. So thanks very much for listening to the speech this morning. And Gus, always great to join you. And I will give you, I'm late 40 seconds, but I'll give it back to you. Thanks, everybody.
I don't think you're being late for this.
No, I'm going to get focused.
All right, with that, we're going to take a 10-minute break. It is 9:21, so come back around 9:30 or a minute after.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats? Our program will begin in 5 minutes.
Okay, please take your seats. We're going to start in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats? Our program is about to begin.
Oh, you're sitting under the fan, yeah. How you doing? Okay.
No, I'm thinking, why did I leave mine in my room? Believe me, I'd be wearing it if we were here. And I don't have those thermal V-necks yet. Keyword, Mary, yeah.
I made the mistake of only bringing one, so it was great for one day.
Well, here's that.
Where's everybody?
guess we'll give him a few more minutes. Nobody's here.
Can I ask you to take your seats, please? We'd like to resume the
Yeah,
program.
well, I don't travel light, but I'm only going to just use the cards. They'll be easily.
Before we resume, I would like to advise our followers on YouTube that due to the nature of this event and the tight timelines, we will not be able to entertain any questions at OPCOM, and I thank you for your kind understanding.
All right, thank you. I hope you had a good break. I'd like to resume our OPCOM with the Recreational Boating Safety Team.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Lauer. I am the ANACO RB. I represent the three directorates, which are B, which is outreach, E, which is education, and V, and PV, special exam and program visitor. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you folks this morning. So I want to start my talk here with a question. Do we all know what Job 1 is? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What is it?
RBS.
RBS is Job 1. Interestingly enough, and I think that you guys all knew I was going to bring it to your attention, here today I'm 18th on the speaking list. How does, what I want to know is, how does Job 1 wind up being 18? I don't know how that works, but just thought I'd bring that to your attention and for your consideration. The RBS directors have performed brilliantly. These folks are amazing. They produced outstanding results during up to this point in 2023. They move everything they do. They move their projects ahead rapidly. They create new and innovative products and services. Their extraordinary approach to their work and 24/7 availability. 24/7 availability means that Bob can call Dave at 11 o'clock at night, and by midnight, I have the answer. That's the devotion of duty to this entire group. Makes them as awesome as they are. Their quick response to changing conditions benefit the entire organization. This is a group that can move forward. And that work that they do and that attention, that focus on their work and attention to detail has a direct effect on how our programs, what happens at the local level, winds up being positive. We have some new faces in the RBS world, and I'm happy to introduce my new ANACO deputy, Chris Wilson. We have, yeah, welcome. And I'm going to try to get this right without screwing it up, but our new director of B, Nan Ellen Fuller. We also, welcome, yeah, there we go. We also have a new deputy director of B, who is Robin Pope, and you've heard about Robin throughout the week. And we're very happy that he's on board with his expertise. Our paddler program is going to really take off, and he's already done some work to point us in those right directions. We have a new director of V deputy, and that's Tom Niles. And welcome to Tom. Tom comes to us with a giant amount of experience, and it's really a pleasure to have him on board with us. Our legacy team members are the director of E, Dave Fuller, the director of E, Deputy Bob Brandenstein, and the director of V, Jim Cortez. You know, and I'd like to say special thanks to Anthony King for stepping in as deputy director yesterday and working with us on the round table. He was able to help us supercharge that event. Appreciate that. And I also have with me with us Greg Fonzino. And for those that don't know Greg underneath his blue uniform, he has a Superman uniform. He's one of those guys that he's responsible for our NASBA connection, our NASBA interface, course conformance, and all of those things that are hugely complicated run through his office, and if it wasn't for him, we'd be in big trouble. So I thank you, Greg, for a job well done. I've served with a lot of units over the course of my life, and it's really a pleasure to be connected with a group like this. I've never had a staff that can do the sorts of things that these folks do. So I wish you would give them all a hand, please. And with these folks, all RBS things are possible. So thank you as a group. We have made good progress on the strategic plan. We have 15 items, and I'm not going to go through them all. I just want to, and we have 5 in the complete stage and 1 very close. I'll just focus on the 5. And it's investigate and recommend a class management system. As you know, that OX Plus PE 6 failed because of lack of governance. It was a term I heard the other day, and that's actually what that was. So that failed. We went out, we looked for a substitute, we found something, and it wound up being financially outside of what we were capable of. So this group is going to look at other alternatives so we can pick up parts of that OX Plus PE 6 functionality we'll use going forward. At least give us a start on trying to make it easier on the course planners and the PE instructors. The other one was review the best principles from RBS organizations and evaluate products to match or exceed industry standards. And we've completed that. We're working on the results so that we can develop our programs appropriately. Develop a state liaison academy. That's going on today. And that was a big lift. That was a heavy lift for these things. And one of the big issues with that is there weren't any job descriptions. A lot of times those were political appointments. Now we're actually putting a plan in place so everybody knows what everybody ought to be doing. And oh, by the way, there's going to be a dotted line to RBS so that we can continue to train and upgrade their skills and be able to communicate and understand what their needs are. So, and be able to help them if necessary. Investigate and recommend incentive and awards program targeted towards instructors. All of you heard Dave Fuller talk yesterday about the 2 awards that he's going to have, 50 and 100 hours. Yeah, 50 and 100 hours. And those are important things. Coupled with the maximum award, we're able to give these rock star instructors what they need. That's really the intent. Reinforce good behavior. So that's complete, and we'll be able to see some of that rolling out very shortly. The last one is to create an internal education document describing the OXPAD program for the auxiliary. At this moment, the OXPAD manual handbook. Thank you. I had the wrong word. It's been created. That project's complete. There has to be a little bit of review left. Up on here. It's under there. So we have done a good job. There is another one that's close to complete. The other nine are in process, and I still have a minute and 43 seconds left. I think I will turn that back to my group. So thank you, everyone, for your attention to RBS. RBS is job 1. And maybe next year, I have to thank the Commodore for putting us in the front row. That's a good step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Nan Ellen Fuller. I'm exceptionally proud to represent the RBS Outreach, the Directorate, here today on behalf of our entire team. First, I'd like to recognize our amazing leadership team, Robin Pope, who is our deputy director, couldn't be here this week, but Anthony King is here. He is our division chief of communication services, and he's here providing amazing support, keeping me in line. Rick Young is our division chief of district liaison, and his instructor team is here this week conducting training for the state liaison district staff officers. Eddie Puckett is our division chief of RBS outreach liaison, and Roland McDevitt is our division chief of paddlecraft safety. All these divisions are focused on our mission to prevent loss of life, personal injury, property damage, and adverse environmental impact associated with recreation, through outreach to the recreational boating community. Now, with our accomplishments and positives in our district liaison division, we have our State Liaison Academy. It's an online Moodle course, and it is basically now in its final stages of approval, but the Academy will provide a learning tool for newly appointed liaison officers and a potential refresher for those who've been in the position for some time. One of the objectives for the DSO SL class at NTRAIN this weekend is to develop some best practices that can be shared with the district. Our RBS Outreach Liaison Division is transitioning to a division chief, and that's going well. The division is also connecting with current partners and exploring new partnership opportunities. Our Paddlecraft Safety Division, as Commodore Lauer mentioned, we just had our OXPAD handbook that was approved and went out last month in February, and it was received with great interest. We also had, the team had a Zoom conference last Sunday on the 26th to discuss the highlights and address any questions related to that. If you missed it, don't worry, it was recorded and you can review it again online, plus they'll be having some additional meetings if you're interested. Okay. Thank you. You told me not to touch it. I don't want. All right. And additional training on the OXPAD handbook will continue as needed. Our Communication Service Division, led by Anthony King, is consistently producing high-quality editions of RBS Job 1 and social media posts on Facebook and Instagram. Some of our challenges, we regretfully acknowledge the passing of our former division chief, Clyde Bowman. Clyde stepped down earlier from his role earlier this year, and he was planning to attend divinity school. Unfortunately, he passed away before reaching that goal, and so this is a great loss to us in the auxiliary and also his community. Our Paddlecraft Safety Division, the OXPAD is facing some resistance still in some for the program in some districts, and we hope to address this issue by having our subject matter experts on national staff to offer virtual training support regarding the new handbook, and also conducting some train the trainer sessions for our Paddler's Guide to Safety seminar. Thank you. Got a minute to go.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Fuller, the Education Director, and with me here is Bob Brandenstein, Deputy Director. And on this side over here is Greg Fonzino. He's our Division Chief for Course Development. These are two rock stars out of the rest of the group that I want to mention to you as well. We also have Division Chiefs Karen Miller, Greg Fonzino, Greg is here, Commodore Mike Morris, Dan Stroop, Andy Kelly, and Commodore Clark Godshall. Those are the folks that really are the secret sauce that makes the magic happen. So for our successes, let me start out by telling you about the newly formed branch. We have the Instructor Development Cadre, and they've just completed the 5th of Instructor Development Virtual Training Academy sessions to qualify auxiliaries to join the ranks of our instructors. And we invited currently qualified members as auditors so they could observe the training firsthand and duplicate our program for the virtual or in-person training of instructors in their districts. We've now developed a template that can be duplicated at the district and division levels, and that will remove barriers to earning the instructor qualification. This newly formed cadre will serve as a long-term resource to the districts. In outreach and internal communications, our leadership team meets weekly, the directorate team meets monthly, and we discuss strategic initiative and gather feedback. We closely monitor the data and proactively provide timely data to district leadership for their situational awareness and action. The team sets the bar for responsiveness to the districts with one-on-one help and training, including quarterly meetings with the DSO's PE and the chiefs of staff. We continue the tradition of producing meaningful and thoughtful articles for each issue of RBS Job 1 to educate and inform members. And we've now established an E-Directorate Speakers Bureau consisting of multiple E-Directorate members willing to travel to your D-Trains or other training sessions to present on a variety of topics on education as requested. And this team is also available virtually. Continuous improvement of our course and seminar offerings is our standard, with development and update of seminars such as Paddler's Guide to Safety, the personal watercraft and youth courses are also among our current priority projects. Our current work list has more than 35 projects in the queue, and certifications with states and approvals to teach virtually are ongoing, detailed, and very time-consuming for Greg. That's all his bailiwick, but we're making a lot of progress. We partnered with other districts and other directorates in several districts to solve our joint challenges on some of our recent projects, and we continue to collaborate externally with our RBS partners. Using those relationships open doors, which allows us to utilize the expertise of others to accomplish much more than we could do on our own. And expanding those relationships internally and externally remains a priority for us. So for the challenges, unfortunately, I'm here to report to you that we've lost a fairly large amount of mission readiness, with a large percentage of our instructors are now REYR or REWK. And we have many instructors who no longer participate for various reasons. Maybe they just gave up teaching, got tired, or whatever. But to remain relevant and mission ready, we have to recruit new instructors to replace those ones that we've lost. So our solution is our Instructor Development 2020 Virtual Academy, and we hope that that can be duplicated in the districts. We know it's been a successful program, and we hope that you can use that in your districts. We need to attract more members to engage in the public education mission, even when there's perceived barriers to providing education. You know, some states have various restrictions on teaching of certificate courses, but our instructors have an extensive library of educational courses and seminars available to them in our library. So our challenge is to break the habit of teaching the same thing repeatedly without considering other courses and seminars that could be taught locally. We seek the assistance of district, division, and flotilla leadership to promote the diversity of seminar and course offerings. And thank you very much. That's my report.
Thank you, Dave.
Admiral, Captain, Commodores, members of the National Staff, on behalf of the Vessel Exam and Partner Visitation Directorate, I bring you greetings. Today I want to cover some important topics that are impacting the entire auxiliary. The V-Director is working on moving into the digital age. One of the things that we're working on is providing, beginning next year, a QR code on the vessel safety check decal. We talked about this in the round robin yesterday. That QR code is going to take our boating public directly to the I Want a VSC system. And that will, we believe, drive increased participation year over year in the vessel safety check program, as well as get other people interested in what is that QR code, and maybe that's something that I want to check out and see what that gives me. So we're excited about that. We've recently completed a total web redesign that's just about ready to go, and we're just about ready to publish that, and we think that's going to make our information more accessible and easier for the public to find the information that they're looking for. We're also working on digitizing some of our standard forms. As you all know, right now we don't collect information about why our why people fail a vessel safety check. So we want to create a database that will allow us to understand the reasons for those failures. We recently completed a VE and PV workshop, and we've been getting lots of good feedback from the field on that. Please continue to provide us with that feedback. We really appreciate the positive feedback, and want to encourage you to ask your members to make sure they get those workshops completed. That's one of the main reasons why we have problems with losing vessel examiners and program visitors, is because they don't take the 15 to an hour's worth of time to complete that workshop. And so we really ask for your help in that regard. We've also updated our vessel safety check decal distribution SOP, and as you know, the 2023 decal distribution process has been completed. As we talked about in the round robin, if you're having issues with decals, please let us know. But we do ask you to make sure that your members are entering their data into aux data so that we can see that they've actually completed and used some of those decals. On the challenge side of things, we're asking you for greater support of the RBS mission area. We are only certified 2% of our new members last year as vessel examiners, and so we really need your help to get more people in the pipeline. The second issue is that although the V Directorate shared folder is a great tool for us to keep our documents in, we really need to have more access to all of the documents that are within our area of operations, forms, whether that be printed material. A lot of that printed material becomes outdated very quickly, and right now it's really hard for us to find that original form that was printed, and so getting updates to those forms is very challenging for us. So we're looking for some help on that area so that we can get those updates made as quickly as possible without having to recreate the files from scratch, which is what we're having to do in some cases now. That's the conclusion of my report. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. All right, next we're going to hear from our new directorates and introduce Rich from Administrative Services.
Thank you very much. My name is Rich Mohalsic, and I'm the Assistant National Commodore for the Administrative Services Group. Before I begin, I'd just like to introduce the two new directorates that are in this group. First one is the Administrative Investigation Directorate, which is led by Sean Peoples and his deputy, Bill Sorrentino, who couldn't be here. Second group is the Document Administrative Directorate, which is led by Terry Barth, Miguel Minervini. My deputy, Randy Patton, is not able to make it today for NTRAIN. He will be here at NACON. So just to start off and put everything into perspective, this journey started in November of 2020. And it was started by Commodore Malusky and Commodore Formato, and it's continuing on with Commodore Kirkwood. I'd like to thank them for their support, along with NEXCOM for supporting us and being behind us and being by our side. So thank you very much. As this group was starting to be put together, prior to it being finalized, I received the very first email I received. It went like this: I need to know what your strategic plan is. And I'm like, what? And that came from somebody who has helped me and guided me and supported us as well, and that's Commodore Merriman. So she has been there guiding me and basically leading me into the strategic plan. So what I'd like to do is just briefly talk a little bit about what we're doing in the strategic plan. I don't want to say too much because the directors will touch base on it, but we have 13 items. Of the 13 items, 4 are done, 7 are in progress, and 2 are waiting. The ones we're waiting on are basically we're trying to set up meetings at Coast Guard headquarters and with CGIS and investigations in order to see where they would like us or what we like us to do The ones in progress deal a lot with training. The one thing about the ones that deal with training, they will always be in progress. I believe training goes on forever and ever. It does not end. The way times change and the way we adopt to stuff that's coming along. So that will always be an ongoing thing. So, we took up enough of your time. I'm going to now introduce Sean Peoples, who's the Director of the Administration Investigation.
Good morning. My name is Sean Peoples. I'm the Director of Administrative Investigations. This is a new directorate that took effect on 1 November, and we began by drafting job descriptions and filling the org chart, and we've assembled a great group of professional former law enforcement investigators, lawyers, and a forensic accountant. And I want to thank my Deputy Director, Bill Sorrentino, who unfortunately couldn't be here this week to join us, but his efforts, his ongoing efforts, have been instrumental in getting this project underway. In terms of accomplishments, our in-service training is ongoing on procedures in conducting auxiliary administrative investigations and how to write proper Coast Guard investigative reports. We are in the process of training the directorate so that we have a uniform reporting procedure. We have assembled a well-diverse directorate with each district being represented. We are developing an SOP covering the routing, assigning, and handling of administrative investigations, and we have located 100% of the mariners that the Coast Guard task forces have requested us to locate. That information was immediately provided back to Coast Guard task forces, and in some cases, we located these individuals who were awaiting trial for violent crimes, and we passed that information on to the Coast Guard so they could take precautionary measures. In terms of challenges, since we are a new initiative, this is an ongoing project. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we are working on SOPs and guides and practices. It's taking a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we want to get it right. We want to make it professional. We need to schedule regular training for guidance on initiating investigations and to ensure uniformity of investigative procedures. And I would just conclude by saying I began my life after college with a stint with NCIS. After basic, I was stationed in Norfolk. And it's exciting for me to be a part of this new initiative to offer our services to CGIS and to the Coast Guard Auxiliary Leadership. Thank you. Sean Peoples, O Directorate.
Thank you, Sean.
And I'm Terry Barth with the W Directorate, and my deputy, Miguel Minervini, my right hand. We've been in existence about 5 months now. So one of the first and most important ups that I have is the talented, enthusiastic staff that we've been able to recruit. You know, developing a new directorate from the ground up is no easy task, and it takes the right combination of talent, drive, and dedication to determine, develop, and manage all the factors that are involved. I've never seen a group of individuals come together so quickly to work as a team to develop the processes, training, and guidelines needed to turn a concept into a functioning directorate. They tirelessly are working to develop the training and processes needed to provide the services that we've been tasked with. They're open to suggestions. They have embraced change, and as a team are constantly working toward learning, improving, and growing. They are communicating, and that's one of the priorities of this directorate is transparency. You're all invited to our meetings. We want to provide you with the information that you need. So the communication isn't just amongst us, just amongst ourselves, but as well as all of those that we serve. Our second up is support. This directorate couldn't develop and move forward without the support we've received from NEXCOM and our senior leaders. But that's just the beginning. The national staff has already been receptive and supportive of some of the process updates we've introduced, such as the appointment spreadsheet guidelines. We look forward to the same support as we move forward with the development and utilization of the digital management system as well as providing the support, training, and guidelines and processes for the materials officers and Secretary of Records that now come under our directorate. Though there are challenges, the support we're receiving is invaluable, and it's helping us make the necessary adjustments, which enables us to move the directorate forward in a slow, methodical, and positive direction. Our third up is the approval and recent purchase of the digital management system. This is going to be a data repository that will provide the auxiliary a secure site for the long-term storage and retrieval of specific documents that will be determined by the National Commodore. We're currently in the beginning phase of developing the foundation, processes, and protocols, with site security being the #1 priority. As far as challenges, right now we're a new directorate and we've really identified one. And the biggest challenge is helping members understand and accept and support change. As a new directorate, we've been tasked by NACO, VNACO, and the rest of the National Board to develop and implement programs, processes, and guidelines that in some instances are going to necessitate change. The digital management system may require some members to learn new file management processes. The materials officers and Secretary of Records have never had national representation before. Unlike all other auxiliary positions, vessel examiners, public affairs, PE, ops, MT, all of the others, they've never been brought together as a team and been provided any standardized guidance, support, and training specific to their offices. So this is all new to them. Some are enthused, they think it's about time, and they're offering not only great ideas, but they're offering their support. Unfortunately, some are having difficulty expanding their scope from the personal, I won't, that's not how I do it mentality, to viewing change as a necessity that will benefit the auxiliary as a whole. We know our national board and our senior leaders are supportive of this, and we appreciate this support. It would be most helpful if this support is filtered down to the district, division, and flotilla members. Let them know we understand change is difficult, but it doesn't have to be bad, and that with the support of these changes, it's just going to help the transition easier for everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. At this time, we have a break scheduled, but since we just came back from a break, we're going to go ahead and continue our program this morning. So our next speaker is from our Chief Counsel Office. Commodore Cream was not able to join us this week, but instead we have Gene Sechdolski, who works with Doug, who's going to give a report.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Commodore. My name is Gene Sechdolski. As said, I am the Assistant Chief Counsel for the Pacific area, and I am also the Assistant Chief Counsel for Intellectual Property. So I will be giving the summary on behalf of Doug Cream, who sends his regrets he's not able to make it today. So the mission of the Chief Counsel's Office is to provide legal counsel and support to auxiliary leaders in the proper running of the auxiliary and its missions and functions. And our significant accomplishments this year, one of which is we've appointed a new Assistant Chief Counsel, Mr. Jason Pfeffer, who will be leading the efforts to have liaison officers within each district. Now, that is traditionally a function assigned within the law department, but what those folks are supposed to be doing is keeping track of what is going on in the state legislatures related to boating safety and auxiliary missions, and bringing that information back to us so that we can advise the Coast Guard and interact with that if warranted, or make sure that we operate consistent with those local state laws and initiatives. So in the past, it's been pretty difficult to find people qualified to do that and to implement that program. So what we have done is appoint Mr. Pfeffer who will be leading that effort across the nation. This past year, we started providing the Coast Guard with some qualified attorney legal assistance to close out contracts that are existing. So we are not necessarily writing those contracts or negotiating them or dealing with them, but making sure those contracts are in a state that they can be closed out with auxiliary legal talent that's qualified to do so. This past year, we also revised and looked at the intellectual property assignments that members must make when they come on board inside the auxiliary to streamline those and make them more efficient and less burdensome. And I believe we have finished a draft of that and sent that over, and we'll be implementing it shortly. And finally, even as we speak today, the staff, the national legal staff, is meeting in a separate room, continuing legal training to make sure that we're all giving consistent advice across the entire country so that when you go to your local DSOLP, they're not giving you advice that's radically different than what I might give you out in the Pacific Northwest. So we continue to do that kind of training for consistency. We also have monthly meetings, and we've seen increased participation in those as we've done that. So each month, the entire legal staff has the opportunity to meet with Chief Counsel to ask questions. We surface issues. We raise questions of interpretation of the manual or the applicable law so that we stay all consistent and the advice we're giving you across the many districts. So that's my report. Thank you very much. We're happy to serve you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we'll hear from our diversity group.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Schultz, the NACO of Diversity and Inclusion. I'd like to introduce my wonderful deputy, Commodore Sue Thurlow. She is the leader of the committee directly related to our ILEAD strategic goal and will now present.
Thank you, Commodore. Greetings, everybody. As we would say from my winter home, good morning, y'all. Our goal is this: support the Commandant's inclusive leadership excellence and diversity initiatives by developing an operational ILEAD program for the auxiliary. Those of you who have been with me the last year have a real good handle, I hope, on what this is. We are on track with our milestones, about halfway through. Essentially, this means we're developing a program in the first half of our milestones, and the second half of our milestones means we implement it with all of you. So what have we learned so far? We have learned through our pilot project that strong support from district leadership is required to make this work. We have learned that the local LDACs or local leadership need to develop a marketing program to get ILEAD down to the member level. We have learned that the program is really very successful so far in districts where it's been embraced. We have 4 pilot districts: First Northern, 7, 9 Central, and 17. I want to thank the leaders of those districts for working with us on determining what works and what could work better. What else have we learned? Confidentiality is paramount to our members. They need to be assured that their concerns will be taken not just seriously, but with confidentiality so that they can be very frank. Also, we've learned that auxiliarists can be shy. Can you believe that? Truly. They need encouragement to share the great things they are doing. We have wonderful programs going out there. Part of ILEAD is the best practice side. Please encourage your members to share the great things they are doing at the local levels so that other local units can copy them. We need to help one another. Changes that we have in process as a result of our pilot project. We are working with the C Directorate to develop a better source for all members to find out more about iLead. Members will be able to submit either directly to their district LDAC through us, through our national, or directly to the national LDAC to assure that confidentiality. Also, we are looking for 2 more pilot districts. So those of you out here on this side of the room, if you're interested in working with us, we will work with you. I want to thank our national LDAC consisting of Commodore Kirkwood, Commodore Schultz, Commodore Merriman, Commodore Thornton, and myself. They care about this. So when you think about retention, I want you to think iLead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Our next group, our final group we're going to hear from today is the FORCECOM group with Todd Monis.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm really excited to be able to stand here and talk to you, and seeing we're the last group before lunch, we're going to try to make this extremely quick. All of you have my script, I believe, in front of you. I'm kind of going to go off script with my executive summary because I'm excited to tell you that all week long we have heard from the admirals and the captains and everybody from the active duty side about augmentation. We've heard about the interpreter corps, the legal folks, everybody who's doing all these wonderful things for the Coast Guard, for the active duty Coast Guard. We all here have an important role to do, and I'm not to take away from any of that, but I'm so excited because every program that the active duty has touched on seems to fall in our group, FORCECOM. My deputy director, David Elliott, and I are working with a wonderful team, which are standing behind me here. We are in charge of our directorate is human resources, we're public affairs, we're training, and we also have the clergy support. And just by hearing that, every active duty member that we have heard from has said, culinary assistance. We've got our folks out on cutters. We just had an example with the Coast Guard cutter Tampa, who 4 of their cooks caught COVID. They made a call to the auxiliary. Within a day, we had 4 cooks on that cutter ready to go to sea. Now, some of them were tasked to work the galley at Station Key West, which is not a bad duty station to be assigned to. But our clergy, they're all over the place. Our doctors, they're all in this group at Cape May, at the academy, and so forth and so on. Our training division was just tasked to help with recruiting and allowing some of the new recruits to use some of our educational systems. It's still in the works, to do some of their pre-work before they go to Cape May. Public affairs, we have public affairs folks all over the cutters and so forth, and they're all coming from your districts, your folks, and we couldn't do it without you. But, you know, I'm excited to be a part of this team. We have a great team. Just to introduce you to them, got Dr. Poole. Well, let me get it closer. I'm sorry. We have Dr. Poole. We have Lee Zimmerman. Dr. Poole's in charge of the clergy support. Lee Zimmerman is in charge of human resources. We got Robert Kumpf. He is the director of training. His deputy is Farron Pettis. That's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to stick with it. I know I messed it up. And then we have Lee's deputy, Steve Provenoff. So that's our team. We are here to help as Commodore Formato has said, you call, we will come. We are there for you. We will support you however you need to be supported. This team will make it happen. So to talk a little bit about, in the little bit of time I have left, about our strategic planning, Pete and Kevin, you guys will be excited to know our strategic planning came in 2 different segments, one of which was pretty much for the other 3, human resources, training, and public affairs. Out of the 7 tasks, 4 of those have been completed. We're 100% done with those. We have 3 that are ongoing. And then we just stood up the clergy support, and they were tasked with 4 different milestones that they had to do. All 4 of those are complete. They're done. So Commodore, we're going to be hitting you, Commodore Merriman, we're going to be hitting you with new ideas for new milestones to try to knock this out and make this, great for you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over, I think, was it H? Oh, A. So I get to be A. Unfortunately, Barry Denton, our director of A, had to go home for a family issue, so he flew out at 4 o'clock yesterday morning. So his 3 ups and 3 downs, his positives, let me get to that page, I apologize. His positives were how expedient after 2 years that our social media policy has gained life and is just on the verge of being sent out and authorized and so forth. We desperately need a social media policy of what you can and can't do on Facebook and Twitter and all these other social media platforms. The Navigator Express, approved by Nexcom, an exciting team is working on the next edition of the Navigator. There are a little bit of hiccups there with printing, but we're going to overcome that as well. And then he's excited, we are excited in the fact that he's updating and professionalizing the PQS for PA 1, 2, and 3. So that should be coming out currently. He wanted to say, as far as his challenges, they're in desperate need of graphic designers. So if you know of any graphic designers out there, they are currently working with and I'm going to probably mess this up too. There's a program or a platform they're using called Canva that they just recently purchased that is going to help them create all these great designs and so forth and so on. And then, which is not really a positive and a up. It kind of goes hand in hand. Just a delay in some of the manuals that we're trying to get approved. We would like to see some of those come out quicker so we could get it out to the fleet a lot faster. And then it's just basically the day-to-day challenges that we incur, as it goes along, okay? So that's it from the A Directorate. We're going to move on now to the H Directorate, and I'll hand this over to a very good friend of mine, Lee Zimmerman.
Good morning, shipmates. Just want to wake you up. It is still morning, right? I want to introduce you to Steve Trojanov. I asked him to join our team about a year ago, and he didn't really know what he was in for, but he has proven himself to be a strong right-hand man, so I appreciate him standing next to me here and supporting. We have a few projects going. We had in FORCECOM the majority of the strategic plans. We've got new projects, and Gus calls me every once in a while with a great idea, so we're working on those too, off the books. Thank you, Gus. We're developing more of a proactive recruiting approach. Some people call it targeted, some people call it focused, but we're looking at engaging folks at their hobby or trade level. If you're a ham operator, we have a spot for you. If you're in a culinary school, we have a spot for you. There are things that we can do better which also helps then with retention. If someone's doing their hobby or their skill or their job, they're more engaged with us as a volunteer organization. We're also rolling out a training for our DSOHRs really to manage at opportunities at the district level. It's called HR Best Practices, and it covers everything from recruiting tips to what forms do you fill out. It's important that we get this done in the spring too, because every December and January we get new staff, and it sometimes takes them 60 days or more, a couple of years, in order to find out all the nuances of HR. So that we're pulling out. We also have a brand new up that didn't make it in time for printing. I was informed about a week ago that a group of physicians is going to be awarded the Niels P. Thompson Innovation Award for the work they did at the Coast Guard Academy in terms of cardiac screening, where they determined and found new candidates for the Academy that needed special care because of cardiac. Now, when I was in college, no one cared if my heart was beating or not, but we're finding issues, we're finding and saving potential problems, and I'm pleased to say that the Coast Guard Academy Clinic needed our help, augmentation, number one. The physicians answered the call, and they're being recognized for it. So I offer that up. Our biggest challenge always remains how do we attract, but how do we retain? That's ongoing. We've had lots of conversations with the DSOHRs on ideas. We'll come up with some stuff and give it a try. But the most important thing is mentoring. And at your flotilla and division levels, we have to eliminate cliques and barriers to engagement and get people involved so that they feel good about their service. Another down would be the sea stories that we miss. I would love for every issue of the Navigator to have a headline that showed somebody coming off of a cutter who spent 60 days or more cooking for the crew and having a wonderful story. So I'm having trouble getting those stories. So what I'm doing is I'm requiring, I know, Taskmaster, I'm requiring an after-action report where if it looks interesting, we'll pull it up and give it to the A Directorate for printing. And the last one, of course, is kind of an annual or perpetual problem. We have a great program now that it's fixed in AAMS that tracks our applicants. That's great. On the bad side is that we also know that there are a number of folks who want to join, really tried, and they fall off the map. They drop from the rolls. And part of it is that they're never called by someone from a flotilla. So we've changed a little bit. We're offering to the district commodores an idea to add a staff person who would do nothing but chase these members, chase the flotillas, and engage them so that they don't fall off the map. And with that, I yield my 20 seconds.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rob Kumpf. I'm the Director of Training. Usually I'm used to standing on a box because I'm too short. So if you can't hear me, let me know. Let me pull up my notes. In the Training Directorate, we don't really believe in ups and downs. We believe in achievements and opportunities to try to make things better. Our 3 achievements this year, or for this NTRAIN, are our Directorate, right-sizing, and remissioning. When we took over the mission, we needed to figure out where we were going with training to support the future of the Coast Guard's needs as well as the auxiliaries. So to do that, we've reshaped the way that our directorate functions. One of the things we created was an instructional design branch to help any member training, any person in the auxiliary that wants to develop a training product to make them so they're engaging, so they're worth having. We're trying to move away from the PowerPoint and then test model or the self-attestation model to make it more engaging. Thanks to those folks, we now have people in place who can use technology that we have available to develop training products that will be engaging and that we're going to make fully exportable to any member training instructor who wishes to do training. One of the other things we have designed is our coaching and mentoring division. which was a task that came down from NACO to help us implement the auxiliary into the existing Coast Guard mentoring program. To do this, we need to have specific email addresses that are more secure to go into their program. To do that, we needed to have people who can monitor those emails. I think we have 500 emails that are open for that program, and they'll be doing a beta test with auxiliaries beginning sometime in April. So if you have members who are interested in that, please contact us so we can put you into that program. In addition to that, recognizing when we've talked to all the district commodores and personnel, there seems to be a disconnect between the new member process and mentoring and coaching to get them where they want to be in their career. So in addition to that program, that division will be tasked with creating, we'll call them best practices for mentoring and coaching, so that every member has those skills and those capabilities to help new members and existing members expand what they're doing in their careers so that they can have a better success story there. Part of that comes down to our communications from national to our folks below the national level, and in that effort, we created the District Liaison Division, which is tasked with doing that exact communication, and that is to open up those lines of communication and to keep them open. Some other things that we've had success on is our technology upgrades. We've upgraded to a new Moodle system. We're trying to centralize all training in the auxiliary to one place so it's easier for people to find and to make it user-friendly. We have so far migrated about 65% of our training content to that platform, and we're looking to get it to about 85 by year's end. It may be more than that if we're lucky. One of the other things that we're doing that's a little bit different than the past is we are directly working with any active duty and any district that needs assistance. I'd like to point out that our folks from BSX, we've been building collaborative relationships with them. Specifically, I'd like to point out Steve Minatola, Lieutenant Booth, and Master Chief Park, who have been gracious enough to coach us along so that we can have a better relationship to build those things forward, and that is developing. Some of the things that we're taking on, they're a little bit non-traditional, is we have been tasked to support the Commandant's TMX task force, or to give her and her team information about auxiliary training, what benefits we get out of it, and how people can become more involved in the auxiliary to expand our capabilities. We have also sought out ways to communicate directly to our membership using things such as the T-grams, and communicating not with just our team, but also with our Commodores and our chiefs of staff. Some of our opportunities to grow, we would like to increase our communications with our other shipmates and national staff. This has been developing thanks to this weekend, and I don't think that this is going to be an opportunity by the time we come to NACON. I believe this will be another achievement. As always, we know the Coast Guard is having issues with funding. They have different priorities, and so that remains a problem with our in-school, our in-person training, but we are developing other avenues to go there. The last thing is more of an opportunity, but it's becoming an achievement right now. As I mentioned, we have started formulating and building collaborative, positive relationships across the national staff, across the organization with our partners in BSX and elsewhere, and we want to keep that going so we can get things reviewed and updated in a more speedy manner. That's all I have, so I'm going to yield my 30 seconds of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, the last briefer before lunch. So grace and peace be with you this day from God our Father. We did not introduce in our introductions my deputy for the G directorate. There's not an official name for G. We assume that at least in our directorate, that stands for God. But nonetheless, my deputy is Chaplain Walcott, who, Tom, would you please, he raised his hand. He is the 11th chaplain of the Coast Guard and has now joined the auxiliary ranks. And right beside him is the current and 12th chaplain of the Coast Guard, which is Chaplain Mode. So welcome, Chaplain Mode. All right, quickly, as my time is evaporating here, I will say the ACS program currently is celebrating its 7th year in continued growth and achievement, and we are really keen on our Coast Guard operational support that we have rendered to the Coast Guard. What I call our force multipliers. Last year, our operational support was the equivalent of 8 full-time active duty chaplains for the Coast Guard. That entailed over 16,000 operational support hours, over 125,000 accident-free miles traveled, and 88,000 unreimbursed expenses that our 100 ACS chaplains have incurred. Also, I will say, since last November, we completed our 3rd annual evaluations that are due on all 100 ACS chaplains each year. Those evaluations are done with inputs from their Coast Guard supervisory chaplains, as well as our senior ACS leadership. And to my knowledge, we are the only program that has an evaluation requirement built into their program. The G Directorate was established only last fall. We have already put forth all our leadership documents, designed and had now approved our new logo. Our Directorate web page is up. We've got a private and public Facebook page that has promoted auxiliary as well as active duty chaplains, so very well involved. The downsides of the ACS program, not many, but there are a couple. The first one is very sad. In January of this year, we had 2 of our ACS chaplains pass away. That would be Linda Herring, 75 years young, and Carl Crump, 78 years young. Both were from District 5 North. So as I said at their funerals, and I say to you now, with honor and respect, and on behalf of Chaplain Mode and all of our ACS chaplains, I say, well done, good and faithful servants. I would also ask that you indulge me here. Aux Data 2, we currently have 55% of our chaplains that are engaged in that wonderful machine. Our goal this year is to achieve at least 75% compliance with our chaplains in utilizing that. We were also changed our operational code to 97 Alpha this year. Caused a little bit of consternation within the program, but we have adapted and moved smartly on and are achieving our attended reporting of our activities well. And finally, I would say to you to expand the spiritual needs of the Coast Guard as far as recruiting in our ACS structure. This year, I'm proud to announce that we already have candidates for Buddhist priests and Muslim imams to engage with the active duty Coast Guard personnel that are of that faith tradition that has been lacking in our program. But here's what I want you to understand and work with me on in my 50 seconds I have left. When an applicant comes into the auxiliary, yes, they complete the application form, they wait in standby status basically until that Coast Watch or background check is done, and then they're hopeful and impatient waiting on that ID number so they can engage in their mandatory training. If I can plead with you, I am asking from the flotilla level to the DIROX level, if there is a way, and I'm gently asking this, if there is a way we can speed up that initial process to get that applicant moving along into the auxiliary quicker, I would really appreciate that, and we'll get more chaplains quickly into the fleet. So with that, my 1 second, I'm done, and I wish you all a pleasant lunch.
Thank you so much. All right. Great job, everybody. It's so incredible to hear all the work that's being done. I really appreciate it. We are a little early. I'm going to ask Ms. Kelly if she's got some announcements before we break for an early lunch.
Well, you know I do. Always. Great reports, everyone, and everyone followed directions perfectly. It really streamlined the process. A couple of announcements. The ship store upstairs will be closing today at 1600. So if you still need some stuff from there, make sure you visit them on the lunch break. Before you check out, preferably today, go to the front desk and look at your bill. Make sure you do not have a hotel tax or a hotel charge on there. You should be tax exempt if you're here on the orders. And make sure to get your travel claims in on your orders. It says 7 days, but we have Stan who's processing those, and he said anything before 30 days he will process, but I'm sure we can do better than that, so let's try to hit that 7-day mark on those. Also, National Board meeting will be back in here at 1300. All right, thank you all. Enjoy your lunch.